Okay, hi. So today I'm going to talk about the books that I finished in February. So I think this is going to be a relatively short video because I only finished 3 books in February. So I don't have too many to talk about. But I always end up talking longer when I don't have a lot to talk about, and then the video ends up being just as long, but whatever. We'll roll with it. Okay, so the first book that I finished was Mislaid in Parts Half Known by Seanan McGuire. This is the most recent addition into the Wayward Children series, which is a portal fantasy series. It's about children who find portals to different worlds and through doors, and you either follow them in different books on adventures in their world, adventures through different worlds, or you follow like a group of children who live at this school that is designed for them to kind of reacquaint themselves with society, that is run by an eclectic old woman who also has a door. So in this one, it's one of the ones where it's like adventures through the doors with a group of children, and your kind of main protagonist that you're following is Ansi, who had the previous book. She was the protagonist, and you learned about how she came to be in her world and all of that. So it's one of the ones that I don't like as much. I prefer the books in this series where you're following someone in their world, and you get to see that world, and you get to see, like, it's more of like a character deep dive, whereas this is more like a character cast. I don't think that, for me, Seanan McGuire does as well with character casts. I always find her dialogue to be a little all over the place and awkward, and this one just like didn't have a whole bunch of meat to it, and the kind of quandary issue that Ansi kind of had with her world, and like you see her kind of develop with that as she moves on into this story, is it's like very juvenile in theme, and what I mean by that is like a theme that would, I think, hit better with like a middle grade audience, but these are not really written for middle grade readers, so it wasn't like a super strong one for me. I always keep reading them. They're super short, and like kind of want to see the whole series through, but like they can be pretty hit or miss with me. Okay, and then I read Passing by Nella Larsen. So this is a classic that takes place in 1920s Black society. You're following the relationship between 2 women who are lighter-skinned Black women, and one of them chooses to pass as white in her life, and like to the point where like her husband does not know that she's Black, and the other one chooses not to, and it's like their kind of relationship dynamics through the years, and kind of like the things that come out of the like kind of like the what you have to give up in both directions, like what this woman who now passes had to give up in terms of leaving her entire identity behind, and like what does it mean to pass as white, be a Black woman, and be married to an extremely racist person, and kind of for the woman who chooses not to pass in her normal life, like when she's going about her business, she does take advantage of it when she can, when she's in public situations. How she feels about this idea of passing, and why someone would choose to do that, and like the dynamics between them because of that. And yeah, it's really like a lot about their relationship. I haven't read any classics from this era that's looking at like elite Black society, and I found that part of the book to be really interesting from like a historic perspective, because I didn't really I guess, know much about how like 1920s elite Black society looked like, I can see why it's like a classic that people like to talk about, like a popular American classic. And yeah, overall it was really short, but I did enjoy the reading experience. Okay, the last one is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. So this is the first book in a fantasy series that is 4 books long. It's a completed series. Okay, so this is considered a silk punk novel. Okay, so this is a term that Ken Liu coined. He says, as I wrote The Dandelion Dynasty, a grand tale of both technology and magic, melding past reinterpretation with future hope crafting, drawing on literary traditions from across the world, I struggled to explain the book to people. Silk punk was the shorthand I came up with to describe the technology aesthetic I wanted for the Dandelion Dynasty series, as well as the literary approach I used to composing the books. In the silk punk world of my novels, this view of technology is dominant. So it's, I'm not going to read the whole thing because he doesn't really reduce it down to like one definable term or sentence, but I'll link to that from his website. But it is a silk punk novel or series, and it is like this blend of like ancient times, kingdoms, and technology, and technological advances, and like still harnessing power and like not having to like go through the Industrial Revolution to have interesting technology in your fantasy book. So I found that very interesting from that perspective. I have a really hard time talking about this book because there's a lot going on in it, but it's also, I don't really know yet how I feel about the book itself. So you're following a lot of different characters. There's a map at the beginning and there is a big character list. I recommend having the physical book or like a bookmark on that in your Kindle one present so that you can kind of go back and look at the map and you could look at the character names because there's a lot of characters and you're just kind of bouncing all over the place, and you have a lot of strings that you're following of different characters, and then those kind of fall away as like sometimes the people that you're following die. So just a kind of flowing, like ebbing and flowing cast of characters that you follow. And it's really not until like the halfway point that you know what's going on. And the back of the book describes something that doesn't become relevant until quite a bit farther into the book. So like the 50% mark. So if you want to go in completely unspoiled, don't read the back. But I think that's true of a lot of fantasy. It's a kingdom that used to be like 7 different places on an island, and on some different islands, there's a main island, there's other islands, and one of those other small islands came into the main island, and all of like the provinces or kingdoms in that island and took it over, and now it is one kingdom. And that is the scene and the setup of the books when you start. The kind of crux idea, without spoiling it, is will this one ruler stand the test of time, or will these dissatisfied people in different parts of the kingdom prevail? And is what the one ruler set up the best strategy, or is there other ways that these people can live in better harmony together, but also just on a level of how the average person lives, and the cruelness or lack of cruelness of the government that they follow. So it's a very political book. I have a hard time expressing or really coming to terms with how I actually feel about the book itself, because it's like you have a lot of characters and they're all very distinct, but they're not... you don't feel like you know them. It's like they have distinct identities, but you don't feel like you understand how their mind works. They don't have a lot of depth to them, even if I can, for the main characters, identify how they're all different from each other. And then there's this sexism element that I don't really know what to make of, because the society is patriarchal and misogynistic itself, and you have very misogynistic characters in the text, and that's not what bothers me. You have characters that have misogynistic tendencies because the culture is set up as such, but can learn from those things. And then you have some empowered female characters that you meet. Women are empowered either by acting the male or by their sexuality. And then it uses a lot of, there are multiple women who die for the sake of the man's growth. And it's just like this kind of weird thing where it's like you're having a meta thematic conversation around women's equality in a misogynistic patriarchy, which I like, but then as an author using literary devices, you are laying your hand down and utilizing those same sexist tropes, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing right now? So yeah, it's also it's a military fantasy. So keep that in mind, like you're following a lot of battles and armies and the politics, but really how the politics come down to the military aspects and the militia aspects of the dynamics going on. So it's political, so you can see through the military lens, essentially. So overall, like, I enjoyed it enough, obviously, to finish it. It is a thick book, and I think I'm going to give the second book a chance. I watched a video recently where someone said, like, that was their least favorite book of the series, and things get better as they go, and, like, the characters get more depth, so I'm hoping to see that. This is also Ken Liu's debut, so I will give him a little bit more grace, and yeah, that is it. So those are all the books that I read in February. A very small reading month. So yeah, that's all I got. So until next time, happy reading.